Okay, everybody, welcome back. Good afternoon. We've got more tight ends to take a look at here. And the first video today was about tight ends that are projected to go in round one. The last video was about tight ends projected to go in round two, so it should not be too hard to figure out what we're talking about in this video. That's right, tight ends projected to go in round three. And just like with the first two groups, there are only two of them. So let's just go ahead and get into it. Just two guys we're going to talk about. And they're two fairly interesting candidates here, especially this first guy. This first guy is a difficult one to decipher. Harold Fannin Jr., one of the more polarizing players in this class, I feel like. And I know that sounds weird for a third-round projected tight end, but he's interesting, man. Small school guy, Bowling Green, 21 when the season starts, so still very young. He's undersized, 6'3", 241. He tested fairly well, although I think it's important to understand when you're looking at these testing numbers, you have to consider the era, right? Historically speaking, well, not even. If you look at the last 25 years, like Harold Fannin Jr. ran a 4.7140 time at the combine. Historically speaking, over the last 25 years, that's actually quite good. It's 65th percentile, but in 2025, there's a little bit of a higher standard. The 65th percentile over the last 25 years, if you shrunk that down to like the last 10 years, I think that the percentile would probably be below 50. A 4.7140 for a tight end is not really separating you from the pack at all. If anything, it's something that people are going to be a little down on. So keep that in mind. Now, his 10-yard split was genuinely great, 89th percentile, 156, so he's very quick. His vertical was pretty decent. Again, I do think that this is something, the 62nd percentile thing is a little misleading, but decent. 9-foot 10-inch broad is, again, decent, I guess. 3-cone was good, sub 7-second 3-cone, which was actually good to see from him. His 20-yard shuttle, however, was bad. Not that it was any better or worse than the other tight ends in this class, honestly. It's not the greatest set of 20-yard shuttles. Bench press was pretty good. So combine testing was a little bit hard to decipher, but overall, I guess it was okay. Big boards mostly put him in the third. Big aggregate puts him in the third. Quite simply, the guy had an unreal 2024. 117 catches, over 1,600 yards from scrimmage, 11 total touchdowns, beast. Can't take anything away from him here. He was reasonably productive as a runner as well, 9 carries. I'm not going to go crazy with it, but he was doing damage as a runner as well. Almost a 96 PFF grading, 150 targets. I mean, you can't do much more production-wise. 2023, obviously not nearly as prolific, but still really good, man. 44 catches, 623 yards. That would be the best tight end on most teams in college. So you cannot deny his production. His production in college alone has put him on the map in a big way. He's very quick to accelerate, which his combine testing also indicated, so that was good. He's got good ball skills. He's good at tracking the ball in the air, adjusting to it, and then finding a way to get his hands on it. And he does have very good hands as well. So you put the ball in play in his area, he's probably going to make a play on it and probably bring it down. He's also fairly good in space. You get the ball in his hands, tell him to go get extra yards. He's going to find a way to do it. He actually uses power a decent chunk of the time to get extra yards, which is interesting because he is a relatively undersized player, barely over 240. He's good at running the routes that he runs. He's a capable route runner of doing the things that are asked of him. That comes with a caveat, more on that later. And he does offer a little bit as a backfield player, somebody that can be like a running back, a short yardage running back. I do think there is at least a little bit of validity to that use. Now, the issue with Harold Fannin Jr. is the agility. He's a straight line speed guy. His routes are simple because they need to be simple. He cannot run more complex routes because he doesn't have the agility or short area athleticism or quick twitch for it. Like, there is a reason why his 20-yard shuttle was so lackluster. It's indicative of one of the issues with him. He is a straight line speed guy. He's not going to be much of a blocker. He's too small. He didn't block that well even at Bowling Green. He's really not going to be able to block that well at the pro level. If you're physical with him, you can really take him out of his game. A little bit frustrating to try to work with him there. If you're physical with him, you can give him trouble. And just in general, I don't know if he'll be able to play in line very much. At 240, 6'3", he may be a slot tight end almost primarily, and there might be very little inline ability here. So this one's really hard. It's really hard to figure out where you value him. Ultimately, I kind of ended up landing on being a little bit cold on him because he won't ever be a very good blocker, and the limited route tree, it's tough for me to get around it. So the more I looked at Fannin, the less I was into it. I'd go middle third round. I do think there's a pretty good playmaker in here somewhere. I do think his acceleration and ball skills are going to combine to make him a weapon in the passing attack. But I wouldn't go until like the middle third round. I just think that the one-dimensional nature of him combined with his limited route tree, which is probably not going to change, makes it a little bit hard. Okay, last top 3 round guy is Gunnar Helm. And by the way, guys, when it's spelled like this, that is actually how you pronounce it. It's not Gunnar, it's Gunnar Helm. And if it is Gunnar Helm, if he wants people to pronounce it that way, he should get his name changed. Just putting that out there. So anyway, Longhorn, we're all pretty familiar with this guy, I think, because he's played on a prolific team in his college career. 22 years old when the season starts. Pretty good size, a little bit lean at 241, but 6'5". He can add weight if he needs to. 32 3/4 inch arms. His combine was terrible, but we know why. And it's not anything that we need to worry about. So I'm not even going to sweat the combine, but the combine was really bad. Slow, bad acceleration, couldn't jump. Everything was weak. Big boards mostly put him near the middle to back end of the third. There's a little bit of variance, but not a lot. The database has him literally at the last pick of the third round, 102. His 1 year of significant production really was last year. It was a good year, though. Almost 800 yards, 60 catches, 7 touchdowns, good yards per reception average. PFF really doesn't like him, though, which is interesting. 62.3 is by far the highest PFF grade he's gotten for a season. Like the previous year, when he didn't play that much, it was 49. That's not easy to do. So the good things about Gunnar Helm, his athleticism and power contribute to him being able to get extra yards. He's really good at grinding out extra yards after the catch. Even though he's not that big, he can still get yak with power, and he's a good enough athlete to make moves happen in the open space. He's got great hands. I think he's got like 2 drops in his career. He's a very smooth operator running his routes, I think. I think that his routes are great. And he can run most of the route tree. Like, you're not going to have to rip plays out of your playbook because of him. He can run the complex routes. He can run the routes that require short area quickness and change of direction. The combine is a red herring due to injury. I think that's the thing that needs to be kept in mind here. He tried to go at the combine through a really, really bad leg injury, and it killed him. But it's not who he is. It's just not. Watch him play at Texas. Watch him test when he gets better. He's fine. So don't worry about the numbers, really. And I do think he's a pretty decent blocker as well, and I think he's got the upside to get better. I think that Helm could end up being a good blocker at the NFL level. And remember, when he's at Texas, think about the other players. It's a two-way street. Yes, getting to play with guys like Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden and I can't remember the name of the running back off the top of my head, but getting to play with those guys makes his job easier. It also means there's a lot more competition for the ball, and he still had 60 catches. So I actually think that's a good thing. Now, when he was at Texas, because there's so much talent around him and because of the way Texas plays offense, Helm almost never got pressed at the line of scrimmage, and he almost never was like tightly covered going across the middle. He almost never ran into traffic across the middle. So when he gets to the NFL, that's going to be some culture shock. He's going to have to figure that out. His technique as a blocker still needs work. I do think it's very fixable, but things like hand placement and his hands getting out too wide and the way he sets his base to anchor down, there is stuff that needs to get better, but I think it can get better. He needs to be able to read his own defense better. I don't think he's really at the point yet where he's able to really find the hole in his zone and sit down. And he's probably got to put on some weight for the NFL. He's got to add muscle so he can block more. He's got to be able to play through contact more. 241 at 6'5" is not cutting it. The good news is he should be able to. So this guy's grown on me. There is some concern. There is going to be a learning curve coming out of the Longhorns offense where life is easy. But I like this guy more than most. I'd go early third round on Helm. I think that he's worth an early third round pick. And that's where I ended up landing on him, which puts me kind of pretty close to where CBS is, right? CBS has him in the late second. I didn't quite go that far, but this is a player that I started to really appreciate the more I looked at. All right, so that's going to be it for the first 3 rounds of tight ends. Next video, we'll deal with the first batch of day 3 guys. And then tomorrow's going to be all about the rest of the day 3 guys. We got a lot of guys to get through. It's a deep class. We got plenty of stuff to cycle through.